Holy crap, what a day yesterday was. So, for those of you who don't know, I live up in Canada. I work with women across North America, which is why you are listening to me if you are in North America. But I also felt the really intense energy of what happened yesterday. So, if you're anyone like me who is very empathic and very sensitive to the energies of those around you, you're likely really struggling with increased negative energy, anxiety, depression, difficulty sleeping because of everything that's going on in the world today. So, a couple of days ago, I put a post in this group that was asking if anyone was interested in a live about what is going on. So I have to be very careful with how specifically I talk about it because there is some censorship going on and I don't want that to be happening to this video. So I'm not going to directly speak about what's going on, but you can sort of read between the lines. And so today I'm actually going to be doing a special live that focuses on how to stay calm and manage your anxiety in a world that's completely chaotic with a lot of health fears and isolation and trauma triggers and everything else. So what I'm going to try to do in this live is go through different scenarios that you may be in. Obviously, anxiety is experienced very differently by everyone in this group, which is why there is no one size fits all approach, but we are going to be looking at various different strategies and scenarios so that you can figure out or at least get some ways to keep calm in this era. Before I dive in, just a reminder that I do have a special on in January that I'm super pumped about for my 12-week program, the Holistic Anxiety Fix. And so you're going to get extra GABA, you're going to get extra time in the program, you're also going to get extra one-on-ones with me. So if you're interested in this, there is a link in the comments that you can book a complimentary call. They are really filling up fast. So if this is something you were considering, want more information about, want to chat with me about your situation and know what the next best steps are, absolutely book this call. It's completely complimentary. So what I first want to talk about is some of the restrictions that are being placed on people. I know where I live, they just put us into the more extreme end of lockdown, which also means social isolation, which also means increasing numbers. So let's first talk about that scenario and how to manage that. So for a lot of people who have had any sort of trauma in the past, this is a trigger for them. And this may not even be something that you're consciously aware of. But for a lot of people with trauma, it's a trigger because the control has now moved outside of you into someone else telling you what to do. And the whole idea with trauma is essentially that you are out of control, especially if it's childhood trauma, but any sort of trauma leaves you feeling out of control. And that is actually what generates more anxiety, because a lot of anxiety is about trying to move things, not remove, into your circle of control. And so when something like when you can go out at night or where you can shop and stores that are open or who you can see are dictated by somebody outside of you, for a group of people that have experienced trauma, this can be a massive trigger because of the control piece. So the first thing that you want to do is start to create a circle of control within your life and think about what things that are in control. This is something that you may even want to go through and write down. What are the things that you can control? What remains within your circle that you do have control over, so that you can reestablish that there are a lot of decisions within your life that you can still manage. Now, when it comes to trauma, specifically PTSD related trauma or complex childhood trauma, I'm a huge promoter of a therapy approach called Emdr. So I have mentioned this to some of you who we've been chatting sort of in the messenger, if this is something you've shared with me. And this is actually not something I'm trained in. It's not something I offer within the 12-week program I do. And so if you're somebody that's sort of nodding your head like, yes, I have this trauma, and yes, I'm triggered by the current lockdowns, then seeking an EMDR therapist is actually really, really great. And I'm going to do a live at another time on what EMDR is. You can just head over to Google for now and, check that out. But that is somebody who's really going to help you to basically break the patterning between traumatic triggers and this flood of emotion. And essentially it will reduce your anxiety. So that's sort of some strategies to deal with the current lockdowns. Now, if you're somebody who is struggling more so because there is this fear of either A, getting yourself sick, or B, getting loved ones sick, then I'm going to go into this in this section now. And so let's talk about the fear of getting yourself sick. So one of the things that's really challenging about what's going on right now is that a lot of the media, whether you're on social media or watching the news, are reinforcing this idea that there is this very dangerous virus and that it's got serious consequences. And so what happens when we hear these stories is our mind starts to play out, this is what it could potentially look like for me. And so if you think about it, if you constantly saw, death every single day, then your mind would start to play that out as well. And so the challenge with this is that you're visualizing a negative outcome all the time when you hear this, and there's no counterbalance for it. So essentially what's happening is you're reinforcing in your mind's eye this negative outcome, imagining constantly worst case scenarios, and then having those feelings associated with that. So what you're essentially doing when you're exposing yourself to this is you're moving yourself into a fear vibration. And so a lot of the women that I talked to were already sort of anxious to begin with, and then this world scenario happened, and so it's kind of added fuel to the fire on people or women who were already anxious, right? And so we're further moving into that negativity. And so what this means is that there's no counterbalance to this. Because there's not a lot of outlets anymore, you can't really socialize in the same way. We're not laughing together in the same way. We're not enjoying family meals together or large social gatherings in the same way. And so we're missing that counterbalance. And so what you need to do is you actually need to spend time, and this is conscious, deliberate time, counterbalancing this for yourself and going into either positive visions of your body, remaining strong and healthy, as well as just positive memories in general, and starting to invite that energy in. At the same time, you really want to be limiting your access to negative information, whether that's the news or social media. I can't tell you the number of clients that I've spoken to that have limited how much news they watch and noticed instantly how well they feel. So really be conscious and maybe even experiment with not watching the news and see how you feel around that, not allowing that negativity to come in. The next thing you want to start to think about doing are affirmations, right? And so this is reminding yourself that you can heal, reminding yourself that your body is strong. If we think about it, our body is absolutely incredible and it has this energy that wants to move towards healing. But if we're constantly telling ourselves, that we're broken, we're not going to be able to heal, and there's all this fear around it, those messages our body actually hears and responds to. And what we know is that if you visualize something or send messages to yourself, visualizing, for example, science has shown that visualizing can be as powerful as actually doing it. And that is why somebody who plays piano, if they practice visually, they can actually go to piano and play it because their mind is still learning these things. And that's why the messages that we tell ourselves about our bodies are really, really important. So reminding ourselves that, my body is strong, my body can heal, my body has healed from all of these things in the past, that's going to be a really, really key message. And I invite you to engage in those affirmations on a regular basis. So the next thing you want to think about is actually reducing stress in your life in general, right? So we talked about news being one of the ways you can reduce stress, but there's a lot of other ways that you can reduce stress. So obviously external stressors, are really, really important. Now, there is some limit on how we can do this right now, especially if you're at home homeschooling and trying to work and trying to manage a family. That's really stressful, and there's not a lot of room to maneuver. But you can do strategies like take the time for self-care activities, right? And really try and make that space for yourself. Now, in addition to that, you can start to do stress releasing techniques at a deeper level. And this is where a lot of the stuff that I talk about in the Holistic Anxiety Fix and walk you through comes in. So some of the things, for example, are eating an anti-inflammatory diet. We're not hearing a lot about this, but let's be honest. If you're filling your body with sugary foods because you're stressed, right, it becomes a vicious circle. If you're eating foods that your body's intolerant to, that's actually stressing your body out, and it's impacting your immune system. So we get a double bonus here. We get a better immune system because it's not busy trying to deal with crappy foods that we're putting in our body. And in general, we're just being less stressed because that food isn't triggering anxiety. We're gonna feel healthier already. Okay, so that's another big thing, working on lifestyle habits like sleep and getting a proper routine. All of those things can absolutely come into play when it comes to preparing your body to manage should you get exposure, right? These are foundational. And if you're not doing the foundations, then you're doing yourself a huge disservice, right? Because you also want to have confidence that I am healthy. My body is strong. I'm feeding it well, right? The next strategy we want to get onto is mindset. And mindset is huge when it comes to what's going on right now. So making sure that you have a good group of supportive people can be absolutely key with mindset. So as much as possible, connecting with them in person based on where you live is key. We know, we've done tons of research that social connection actually increases immunity and boosts health, right? So make sure that you have a social circle. If you're isolated, if you're living alone, find a bubble. Make sure you have that connection. Now, when you're thinking about mindset work, CBT is really, really important when it comes to reframing your thoughts around what's going on in the world today. And so this is a strategy, again, that I walk you through in the Holistic Anxiety Fix, but because I'm doing an extra special live today, I am going to be giving you a little bit more detail on what to do. So essentially what CBT or cognitive therapy is it's looking at the evidence for and the evidence against a situation. So, if your thought is, oh my goodness, I'm gonna go to the grocery store and catch COVID and die, right? That is like a thought that's not necessarily true. And so what you wanna do is you wanna look at the evidence that might happen, okay? And then you want to look at the evidence that it might not happen. And when you're doing this kind of exercise, it's really important to be very, very logical. Pretend you're like a detective, right? So what are some of the things? Do you know anybody that has gone to the grocery store and that's happened to? Do you know anyone in your circle that's happened to? Because what happens with all this negative storytelling is that the statistics in our heads become skewed. And so the worry meter becomes skewed. And so we assume that we're at a higher risk of something when we're actually not. And so what I invite you to do is do the hardcore research. Go on the CDC site. Go look at the statistics. What is the actual percentage? I believe it's somewhere around 99% that recover, but do the research for yourself and really put the evidence, the hardcore facts in front of you, and then create a more realistic approach. So this isn't denying that there's fear. Obviously, there's a risk, right? But what it's doing is it's putting it more in perspective for you so that you have all of the facts and you have the reality of it. The next thing you want to do, and this is the last tip I'm going to give you today, is you're going to want to ground yourself, right? You're going to want to find a way to find a safe space, whether this is real or whether it's imaginary, where you're going to center yourself every single day. And having that routine where you remind yourself you're healthy and you're safe is also going to be really, really important for you. It's going to keep that consistency as you're moving through the complete chaos of the world around us. So hopefully some of these tips give you somewhere to start. If you want some more explanation on something, just comment below. If this was useful for you, please put an emoji below and let me know. And if you're looking for more information on joining the 12-week program where I walk you through step by step how to get to root causes of anxiety from a mindset and a nutritional and a mineral approach, then please feel free to personally message me or to book a call noted in the link above. Otherwise, breathe. We've got this together. Have a good day.